and welcome. Tonight we'll journey through the mysterious realm of sleep itself, the place you visit every night, yet remember so little about. A world that exists in the quiet darkness behind closed eyes, where consciousness fades and something else takes over. Where your body performs its most essential work and your mind travels through landscapes you'll mostly forget by morning. Sleep is not simply the absence of being awake. It is an active, dynamic process that unfolds across the hours of night like a carefully choreographed performance. Your brain does not switch off when you close your eyes. Instead, it shifts into different modes of activity, cycling through distinct stages that each serve their own purpose. Throughout the night, you move through these stages multiple times, descending into deep rest and rising again toward lighter sleep, over and over in a rhythm as old as consciousness itself. For most of human history, sleep was as mysterious as the stars themselves. Ancient peoples had no way to know what happened during those hours of unconsciousness. They could observe that sleep was necessary, that going without it led to suffering and eventually death. They could see that everyone slept, from the youngest infant to the oldest elder. But the purpose of sleep, the mechanics of it, remained hidden. Some cultures believed the soul left the body during sleep to wander in spiritual realms. Others thought sleep was a small death from which we were fortunate to return each morning. Dreams were seen as messages from gods or glimpses into other worlds. It wasn't until the 20th century that scientists began to truly understand what happens when we sleep. The invention of the electroencephalogram in the 1920s allowed researchers to measure brain activity through electrodes placed on the scalp. For the first time, they could see that the sleeping brain wasn't simply quiet or inactive. It produced distinct patterns of electrical activity that changed throughout the night. In 1953, a researcher named Nathaniel Kleitman and his graduate student Eugene Aserinsky made a groundbreaking discovery. While monitoring the brain waves of sleeping subjects, they noticed periods when the brain became highly active, almost as active as during waking hours. Even more strangely, during these periods, the sleeper's eyes moved rapidly beneath their closed lids. They called this rapid eye movement sleep, or REM sleep, and it revolutionized our understanding of sleep. This discovery revealed that sleep was not a single uniform state, but rather a complex journey through multiple stages, each with its own characteristics and purposes. Further research over the following decades mapped out the architecture of sleep, identifying the different stages and their progression throughout the night. We learned that sleep serves far more purposes than anyone had imagined, from consolidating memories to clearing toxins from the brain, from regulating hormones to maintaining immune function. Sleep touches virtually every system in your body, influencing everything from your metabolism to your mood, from your creativity to your cardiovascular health. Yet even with all this knowledge, sleep remains in many ways mysterious. We still don't fully understand why we dream, though we know dreaming happens and serves important functions. We can't completely explain why sleep deprivation is so profoundly damaging, though we can measure its effects. We know that every animal sleeps, from the simplest insects to the most complex mammals. But the exact evolutionary pressures that made sleep universal remain partly unclear. What we do know is that sleep is not optional, not negotiable, not something you can train yourself to need less of. It is as fundamental to life as breathing. The journey into sleep begins the moment your head touches the pillow. Your breathing starts to slow, becoming more regular and measured. Your heart rate decreases, no longer responding to the demands of the day. Your muscles begin to relax, releasing the tension they've held through hours of movement and activity. Even your body temperature starts to drop, cooling by a degree or two as your metabolism shifts into its nighttime mode. These changes happen gradually, so subtly that you barely notice them as you drift from wakefulness into the first shallow waters of sleep. But before you can even begin this transition, your body needs the right conditions. You need to feel safe. Throughout evolution, sleep has been a vulnerable state. A sleeping animal cannot flee from predators, cannot respond quickly to threats. Your nervous system must determine that it's safe to let go of vigilance. This is why you can't simply force yourself to sleep on command. Your body has its own requirements, its own checks that must be satisfied before it will allow consciousness to fade. This is why you can lie awake for hours in an unfamiliar place, or why a strange noise can keep you alert no matter how tired you feel. Your primitive brain is assessing danger, deciding whether this is truly a safe moment to enter that vulnerable state of unconsciousness. Temperature plays a crucial role in initiating sleep. Your body's core temperature naturally drops in the evening, reaching its lowest point around 4 or 5 in the morning. This cooling is part of your circadian rhythm's sleep signal. A warm environment makes it harder to fall asleep because your body needs to cool down to initiate sleep. This is why a slightly cool bedroom, around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit for most people, promotes better sleep. It's also why taking a warm bath before bed can help you fall asleep. Not because the warmth itself is sleep-promoting, but because when you get out of the bath, your body temperature drops rapidly as blood flow moves from your core to your skin to dissipate heat. This rapid cooling mimics and enhances the natural temperature drop that signals sleep time. Light exposure in the hours before bed also affects your ability to fall asleep. Even dim artificial light can suppress melatonin production. Your brain interprets light as a signal that it's still daytime, that you should remain alert. This is especially true of blue wavelength light, which is abundant in sunlight and also emitted by electronic screens. Blue light is particularly effective at suppressing melatonin because it's the wavelength that your circadian system is most sensitive to. In the morning, exposure to bright light with blue wavelengths helps you wake up and feel alert. In the evening, that same light works against you, telling your brain it's not yet time to sleep. This is one reason why people often report difficulty falling asleep after spending the evening looking at phones, tablets, or computers. The light from these devices, held close to the face, sends a powerful wake signal to the brain. The position you sleep in can affect how quickly you fall asleep and how well you sleep. Most people have a preferred sleep position that they naturally gravitate toward. Side sleeping is the most common position, with more people sleeping on their right side than their left. Back sleeping is less common, but often recommended by sleep experts as it can help maintain spinal alignment. Stomach sleeping is the least common position and can sometimes cause neck and back strain. But comfort is individual. The best sleeping position for you is the one that allows you to relax most completely and sleep most soundly. Your body often knows what works best. This initial transition is called Stage 1 sleep. It lasts only a few minutes, usually between 1 and 7. During this brief window, you're hovering in the space between being awake and being truly asleep. Your brain waves begin to slow from the quick, irregular patterns of wakefulness into something gentler. Alpha waves, those smooth oscillations that appear when you're relaxed but alert, start to fade. They're replaced by theta waves, slower and deeper, the first sign that your conscious mind is releasing its grip on the world. If someone were to wake you during this stage, you might not even realize you'd been sleeping at all. You might insist that you were just resting your eyes, just thinking with them closed. The boundary between waking and sleeping is that thin, that easily crossed without notice. During Stage 1, your muscles remain mostly toned, capable of movement, but they begin to relax. You might experience sudden muscle jerks called hypnic jerks or sleep starts. These are completely normal, occurring in as many as 70% of people. A hypnic jerk is a sudden, involuntary muscle contraction, usually in the legs, that can be strong enough to wake you. It's often accompanied by a sensation of falling or tripping. Scientists aren't entirely sure why hypnic jerks happen, but one theory suggests they occur as your brain transitions from waking control of muscles to sleep control. As your muscles relax and motor control shifts, the brain might misinterpret this relaxation as a signal that you're falling, triggering a corrective jerk. Another theory proposes that as your breathing and heart rate slow during the sleep transition, your brain might briefly activate muscles to ensure all systems are still functioning normally. Some people experience vivid sensory phenomena as they fall asleep. These are called hypnagogic hallucinations, and they can involve any of the senses. You might hear your name being called, hear music or voices, see fleeting images or patterns of light, feel sensations of movement or presence. These hallucinations occur because parts of your brain are already entering dreamlike states, while other parts remain somewhat awake. They can be startling, but are generally harmless. Similarly, some people experience exploding head syndrome during the transition to sleep. Despite its alarming name, this condition involves hearing a loud noise like an explosion, crash, or slam that doesn't actually exist. There's no pain associated with it, just the startling sensation of a loud sound. It's thought to result from a brief surge of activity in the parts of the brain that process sound as you fall asleep. Your perception of time becomes distorted during Stage 1 sleep. You might feel that only moments have passed when actually 5 or 10 minutes have elapsed. Or you might feel you've been lying awake for an hour when only a few minutes have gone by. This distortion occurs because Your brain is no longer processing time in the normal linear fashion of waking consciousness. The parts of your brain that track time and maintain awareness of duration begin to quiet down, leading to this dreamlike timelessness. This is also why people often feel they haven't slept at all if they're woken from stage 1 sleep. Without the normal markers of time passage, it feels like no time has passed at all. But soon you slip deeper. Stage 2 sleep arrives quietly, and with it comes a more definite separation from the waking world. Your body continues its slow relaxation. Your eyes, which may have moved slowly behind your lids in stage 1, now become still. Your heart rate drops further, and your breathing settles into an even more regular rhythm. This is light sleep, but it's unmistakably sleep. If you were awakened now, you would know you had been sleeping. You would feel that characteristic grogginess, that momentary confusion about where you are and what time it is. During stage 2, something remarkable happens in your brain. Special patterns of activity emerge, brief bursts of rapid waves that scientists call sleep spindles. These spindles last only a second or two, but they appear to play a crucial role in how your brain processes and stores information. They may be part of how memories from your day get filed away, sorted, and integrated with everything else you know. Sleep spindles occur when neurons in your thalamus, a deep brain structure that acts as a relay station for sensory information, suddenly fire in rapid synchronization. This burst of activity spreads to your cortex, creating the characteristic spindle shape seen on brainwave recordings. Research has shown that people with more sleep spindles tend to perform better on memory tasks. Students who show more spindle activity after studying new material often remember that material better when tested later. This suggests that sleep spindles are actively involved in memory consolidation, the process by which temporary memories become permanent. When you learn something new during the day, that information is initially stored in a temporary form, held primarily in a brain structure called the hippocampus. During sleep, particularly during stage 2, these temporary memories are gradually transferred to longer-term storage in your cortex. Sleep spindles appear to facilitate this transfer, helping to strengthen the neural connections that encode the memory. Along with these spindles come K-complexes, single long waves that sweep through your brain's activity. These waves might help protect your sleep, keeping you from waking in response to sounds or other stimuli in your environment. They act as gatekeepers, deciding what's important enough to wake you and what can be safely ignored. A K-complex can be triggered by external sounds, almost like your brain briefly checking in to assess whether the sound represents a threat. If the sound is determined to be benign, a familiar household noise or distant traffic, you remain asleep. But if the sound is unusual or potentially threatening, the K-complex might lead to awakening. This is why you can sleep through your alarm clock sometimes, but wake instantly to an unfamiliar sound. K-complexes are the largest and most distinctive of all brain waves. They have a very high amplitude, meaning they represent a powerful burst of synchronized neural activity. They appear suddenly, like a spike in the otherwise relatively calm sea of stage 2 brain activity. Scientists believe K-complexes may serve multiple functions beyond just protecting sleep. They might help with memory processing, similar to sleep spindles. They might be involved in suppressing cortical arousal, actively keeping the brain in a sleep state. Some researchers think they represent a form of information processing, the brain responding to and categorizing stimuli without fully waking. You spend about half your total sleep time in stage 2. It forms the foundation of your night, the platform from which you descend into deeper rest and from which you rise back toward consciousness. You'll cycle through stage 2 multiple times during the night, returning to it after periods of deep sleep and again after each bout of dreaming. It's the most common stage of sleep, the baseline state your brain returns to again and again throughout the dark hours. While stage 2 is considered light sleep compared to the deeper stages that follow, it's still real sleep, still serving important functions. Your body is resting, conserving energy. Your brain is processing information, consolidating memories. Your immune system is active, producing immune cells and proteins that help fight infection and disease. Your cardiovascular system is relaxing, with blood pressure dropping below waking levels. Even your digestive system slows down, requiring less energy and blood flow. During stage 2 sleep, your conscious awareness of your surroundings is greatly reduced, but not completely absent. Your brain is monitoring the environment at some level, ready to wake you if necessary. This is how mothers can sleep through thunderstorms, but wake instantly to their baby's cry. This is how you can sleep on a train or bus, and somehow wake just before your stop, even without an alarm. Some part of your brain is maintaining a low-level awareness, processing enough information to keep you safe and on schedule. The duration of stage 2 periods changes throughout the night. Early in the night, you might spend 10 to 20 minutes in stage 2 before descending into deep sleep. Later in the night, stage 2 periods become longer, sometimes lasting 30 minutes or more. This shift happens because the deeper stages of sleep are prioritized early in the night, while REM sleep, which comes after stage 2, is prioritized later. The architecture of sleep shifts as the hours pass, changing the balance between different stages. For shift workers or people with disrupted sleep schedules, stage 2 sleep can become fragmented. Instead of smooth periods of uninterrupted stage 2, they might experience brief arousals or transitions between stages, preventing the sustained periods of stage 2 that allow proper memory consolidation. This fragmentation, even if total sleep time is adequate, can lead to cognitive problems and daytime fatigue. Quality of sleep matters as much as quantity, and the continuity of sleep stages is a crucial component of quality. Then comes the deepest sleep of all. Stage 3, also known as slow wave sleep or delta sleep, is where your body does its most intensive restoration work. Your brain waves slow dramatically, forming large, powerful delta waves that roll through your mind like ocean swells. These waves are the slowest of all brain activity, cycling at less than 4 times per second. In the waking world, your brain never produces anything like them. They are unique to this deepest state of sleep, this furthest point from consciousness. The transition into deep sleep is gradual. As you move from stage 2 into stage 3, the proportion of delta waves increases. When delta waves make up more than 20% of the brainwave activity, you've entered deep sleep. As the minutes pass, these slow waves dominate more and more until your entire brain is pulsing with these powerful, synchronized oscillations. It's as if all your neurons are breathing together, rising and falling in unison. During slow wave sleep, your body temperature reaches its lowest point of the entire 24-hour cycle. Your blood pressure drops to levels far below those of your waking hours, giving your cardiovascular system a much-needed rest. The stress on your heart decreases significantly during deep sleep. Your breathing becomes slow and steady, perfectly regular, like the breathing of someone in deep meditation or profound rest. Each breath is deep and even, your diaphragm moving in a relaxed, effortless rhythm. Your muscles are completely relaxed, though not paralyzed as they will be later during dreams. If someone tried to wake you now, they would find it surprisingly difficult. Even loud noises might not rouse you. You're deeply disconnected from the external world, far removed from waking consciousness. And if you did wake, you would be profoundly disoriented, confused, struggling to understand where you are or what's happening. This confusion, called sleep inertia, can last for 30 minutes or more, your brain taking that long to fully transition back to its waking mode of operation. During sleep inertia, your cognitive functions are significantly impaired. Your reaction time is slow. Your thinking is muddled. You might not even remember what woke you. This is why people who are woken from deep sleep sometimes do or say strange things they don't remember later. Their brain is caught between sleep and waking, not fully in either state. This deep sleep is when your body performs its most crucial maintenance. Growth hormone floods your system, reaching its highest levels of the entire day. Growth hormone doesn't just promote growth in children, though it certainly does that. In adults, it promotes the repair of tissues throughout your body. It stimulates protein synthesis, helping rebuild muscles. It promotes the healing of injuries. It strengthens bones. The vast majority of growth hormone is released during deep sleep, making this stage absolutely critical for physical recovery and maintenance. Your immune system kicks into high gear during deep sleep, producing infection-fighting cells and strengthening your defenses against disease. T cells, which are crucial for fighting infections, are produced at higher rates during deep sleep. Pro-inflammatory cytokines, which help fight infections and promote healing, increase during this stage. The immune system uses the restful period of deep sleep to manufacture and deploy the cellular machinery needed to protect your body from pathogens. This is why sleep deprivation makes you more susceptible to infections. Without adequate deep sleep, your immune system cannot function optimally. Studies have shown that people who don't get enough sleep are more likely to get sick after being exposed to viruses like the common cold. Your muscles recover from the day's exertions during deep sleep, rebuilding themselves stronger than before. When you exercise, you create microscopic tears in muscle fibers. It's during deep sleep that these tears are repaired. with the muscle tissue growing back slightly stronger. Athletes who don't get adequate deep sleep show impaired muscle recovery and decreased performance. Your bones also grow and repair during this stage. Bone remodeling, the process by which old bone tissue is broken down and new bone tissue is formed, happens primarily during deep sleep. Even your brain cleanses itself during these hours, flushing out waste products and toxic proteins that accumulated while you were awake. This is a literal physical cleanup process. Researchers have discovered that during deep sleep, the space between your brain cells expands slightly by as much as 60%. This expansion allows cerebrospinal fluid to flow more freely through your brain tissue, washing away metabolic waste products. One of the key waste products removed is beta amyloid, a protein that accumulates in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. Inadequate sleep, particularly inadequate deep sleep, leads to higher levels of beta amyloid accumulation, which may be one reason why chronic sleep deprivation is associated with increased dementia risk later in life. This glymphatic system, as it's called, operates most efficiently during deep sleep. It's like a garbage collection service for your brain, clearing away the cellular debris generated by a day of thinking, learning, and experiencing. Without this nightly cleaning, toxic proteins would build up, potentially damaging neurons and impairing brain function. The discovery of this system has revolutionized our understanding of why sleep is so essential for brain health. You need this deep sleep to feel truly rested. Without it, even 8 or 9 hours in bed will leave you feeling drained and exhausted. Your body knows this. It prioritizes stage 3 sleep, front-loading it into the early part of the night. During your first sleep cycle, you might spend 40 minutes or more in deep sleep. But as the night progresses, you spend less and less time there. By your final sleep cycles, just before morning, you might skip deep sleep entirely, cycling only between stage 2 and REM sleep. Your body takes its deep rest first, ensuring you get what you need most, even if your sleep is interrupted. The amount of deep sleep you need changes across your life, and these changes tell us something about what deep sleep does. Babies and young children require enormous amounts of it, spending much of their sleep time in these deepest stages. Infants might spend as much as 30 to 40% of their sleep in deep sleep. This makes sense when you consider how much growing and developing their bodies are doing. Every system in an infant's body is rapidly developing, and this requires intensive physical maintenance and repair work. The high levels of growth hormone released during deep sleep drive the incredible growth spurts of early childhood. Teenagers still need significant deep sleep as their brains and bodies continue to mature. The adolescent brain is undergoing extensive remodeling, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for judgment, planning, and impulse control. This neural remodeling requires substantial deep sleep. The bones of teenagers are growing rapidly, requiring the bone-building processes that happen during deep sleep. The muscular changes of puberty likewise demand adequate deep sleep for proper development. But by adulthood, the proportion drops significantly. Adults typically spend only about 10 to 20% of their total sleep time in stage 3. Some adults might spend as little as 5 to 10%. And as you age further, deep sleep continues to decline. People in their 60s and 70s may have very little slow-wave sleep at all, perhaps only a few minutes per night, or none on some nights. This decrease is one of the most consistent changes in sleep architecture with aging. And it might explain why older adults often complain of sleep that doesn't feel refreshing, why they wake feeling they haven't truly rested despite spending adequate time in bed. This decline in deep sleep with age appears to be related to changes in the brain itself. The areas of the prefrontal cortex that generate deep sleep waves become less effective with age. The neurons may not fire as synchronously, or the connections between brain regions may weaken. Some researchers believe that this age-related decline in deep sleep might contribute to cognitive decline in older adults. And there's growing interest in finding ways to enhance or preserve deep sleep in aging populations. Some promising research has looked at techniques like auditory stimulation, where specific sounds are played during deep sleep to enhance the slow waves, potentially improving memory consolidation. The importance of deep sleep cannot be overstated. It's during this stage that your body and brain perform maintenance that cannot be done while you're awake. The metabolic demands of consciousness are too high to allow for this kind of intensive repair work during the day. Your brain needs to be relatively quiet, your body relatively still, for these processes to occur. Deep sleep is when you are most fully resting, most completely separated from the demands of the waking world, allowing your body to focus entirely inward on repair, restoration, and renewal. After deep sleep, something strange begins to happen. You don't wake, but you don't stay in that profound rest either. Instead, you start rising back through the stages. You return to stage 2 for a while, perhaps spending 10 or 15 minutes there. And then, roughly 90 minutes after you first fell asleep, you enter a completely different kind of sleep. A state so distinct that it seems almost separate from sleep entirely. This is REM sleep. Rapid eye movement. Sleep. And it is here that the strangest phenomena of the night occur. Your brain suddenly becomes wildly active as it is when you're fully awake, perhaps even more so in some regions. The EEG patterns that measure your brain's electrical activity show waves that look almost identical to waking consciousness. Fast, desynchronized activity fills your brain. Neurons fire rapidly throughout your cortex, consuming nearly as much energy as they do during the day. Your brain is working intensively, processing, creating. Yet you remain utterly unconscious, lost in a private world of your own making, disconnected from physical reality. The transformation from stage 2 sleep into REM is dramatic. Within moments, everything changes. Your brain waves shift from the relatively slow, synchronized patterns of stage 2 to the fast, irregular patterns of REM. It's as if someone flipped a switch. Scientists sometimes call REM sleep paradoxical sleep because your brain looks awake, but your body is deeply asleep, creating a paradoxical state unlike anything else in nature. Your eyes begin to move behind your closed lids. Not the slow, rolling movements of light sleep, but quick, darting motions. Back and forth, up and down, diagonal sweeps, as if you're watching something unfold before you. And, in a sense, you are. Because this is when dreaming happens, when your mind generates vivid, often bizarre, usually emotional dreams. These aren't the simple, vague impressions that might occur during other sleep stages. These are full sensory experiences, complete with sights, sounds, sensations, emotions, and narratives. Stories that feel completely real while you're in them, even when they make no logical sense at all. The content of dreams is endlessly varied. You might dream of flying or falling. You might find yourself back in school taking an exam you didn't study for, or at work suddenly naked, or trying to run but moving in slow motion. You might dream of places that don't exist, combinations of different locations, blended into something new. You might see people's faces morphing into other faces, or find yourself having conversations that jump illogically from one topic to another. The laws of physics don't apply in dreams. Time moves strangely. Cause and effect become disconnected. Yet within the dream, this all seems perfectly normal, perfectly reasonable. While your brain races and your eyes move, something remarkable happens to the rest of your body. Your muscles become temporarily paralyzed, not weakened or relaxed, but actually paralyzed, unable to move no matter how much your dreaming mind might want them to. This paralysis, called atonia, affects your arms, your legs, your trunk. Only your breathing muscles and your eye muscles remain active. If you could somehow watch yourself during REM sleep, you'd appear completely still, except for your rapidly moving eyes and your chest rising and falling with breath. Even if you're having an intense dream where you're running or fighting, your body remains motionless. This temporary paralysis serves a vital function. It prevents you from acting out your dreams, from physically performing the actions your mind is experiencing. Without it, you might thrash around, potentially hurting yourself or anyone sleeping nearby. The paralysis is created by neurons in your brainstem that actively inhibit motor neurons, blocking the signals that would normally cause muscle movement. It's not that your brain isn't trying to move your muscles during dreams. The motor cortex, which controls movement, is often quite active during REM sleep. But the signals from your motor cortex are intercepted before they can reach your muscles. Some people lose this protective paralysis due to a disorder called REM sleep behavior disorder. These individuals physically act out their dreams, which can be quite dangerous. They might punch, kick, leap out of bed, or run into walls while still asleep. They often don't remember these episodes, or only have vague memories. REM sleep behavior disorder is more common in older adults, particularly men, and it can sometimes be an early sign of neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's disease. During REM sleep, your heart rate becomes variable and erratic. One moment it might be slow and steady, the next it might speed up as if you're running. These fluctuations correspond to what's happening in your dream. If you're dreaming something exciting or frightening, your heart rate increases. If your dream becomes calm, your heart rate slows. Your breathing follows a similar pattern, becoming irregular and sometimes rapid. This stands in stark contrast to the steady, regular breathing of deep sleep. Your blood pressure rises during REM sleep, sometimes reaching near waking levels. Your body's temperature regulation becomes impaired during REM sleep. You cannot effectively regulate your body temperature, cannot shiver if you're cold or sweat if you're hot. You're briefly, functionally poikilothermic, like a reptile, your body temperature drifting toward ambient temperature. Male bodies experience erections during most REM periods, a phenomenon called nocturnal penile tumescence, regardless of dream content. This happens during approximately 80 to 95% of REM periods. These erections are not related to sexual dreams, though sexual dreams can occur. They result from the activation of specific neural pathways during REM sleep. Female bodies experience similar changes with increased blood flow to the clitoris and vagina. These physiological responses happen automatically, not related to the content of dreams, simply a feature of this peculiar state. The first REM period of the night is brief, perhaps only 10 minutes, sometimes even less. You might have only a fragment of a dream, or no dream memory at all from this first REM period. But as the night progresses, REM periods become longer and more frequent. Your second REM period might last 15 or 20 minutes. The third might be 25 or 30 minutes. By morning, you might spend 30 minutes or more in a single REM episode, experiencing elaborate, vivid dreams. This is why you're most likely to remember a dream if you wake naturally in the morning, rather than being jarred awake by an alarm. You're probably waking directly from REM sleep, from the midst of a dream, and the memory is still fresh in your mind. Dreams themselves remain one of the great mysteries of neuroscience. Scientists can see when dreaming happens. They can measure the associated brain activity with extraordinary precision. They can wake people during REM sleep and hear detailed dream reports. But why we dream, what purpose it serves, what dreams mean, all remain uncertain. The question has been debated for thousands of years, and even with modern neuroscience, we still don't have definitive answers. Some researchers believe dreams help consolidate memories, integrating new experiences with existing knowledge. According to this theory, dreaming is part of how your brain sorts through the day's experiences, deciding what to keep, what to discard, and how to connect new information to what you already know. The bizarre nature of dreams might result from the brain making unexpected connections between disparate pieces of information, finding patterns and relationships that aren't obvious during waking consciousness. Some studies have shown that people perform better on memory tasks after sleeping and dreaming than after being kept awake, supporting this memory consolidation theory. Others think dreams allow emotional processing, letting you work through feelings and experiences in a safe mental space where real-world consequences don't apply. During REM sleep, the amygdala, which processes emotions, is highly active. At the same time, norepinephrine, a neurotransmitter associated with stress and anxiety, is at its lowest levels. This unique neurochemical environment might allow you to revisit emotional or traumatic experiences without the full stress response. You can process the emotions associated with difficult experiences while feeling somewhat detached from them, potentially helping you cope with and integrate those experiences. This is sometimes called the overnight therapy hypothesis. Still others propose that dreams help maintain neural connections, keeping your brain's networks active and healthy during sleep. According to this theory, REM sleep provides stimulation to your brain to prevent neural circuits from deteriorating during the hours of reduced external input. Dreams might be the side effect of this internal stimulation, a kind of screensaver for consciousness. Your visual cortex, auditory cortex, and other sensory processing areas are all active during REM sleep, even though no real sensory information is coming in. They're being stimulated from within, and dreams are what that internal stimulation feels like subjectively. Some scientists think dreams serve no particular function at all, that they're simply a meaningless byproduct of the brain's activity during REM sleep. According to this activation synthesis hypothesis, the brainstem randomly activates different parts of the cortex during REM sleep, and the conscious mind, which is partly active, tries to make sense of this random activity by creating a narrative. Dreams are strange and illogical because the cortex is trying to construct a coherent story from fundamentally incoherent signals. It's like your brain looking at clouds and seeing shapes. The shapes aren't really there. Your brain is just pattern-seeking, trying to find meaning in randomness. The truth might involve aspects of all these theories. Dreams might serve multiple functions simultaneously, or different types of dreams might serve different purposes. Recurring dreams might have different functions than one-time dreams. Nightmares might serve different purposes than pleasant dreams. The field of dream research continues to explore these questions, using increasingly sophisticated brain imaging techniques to watch what happens during dreams. Dreams can feel random, but they're not entirely. Studies show that dreams often incorporate elements from recent experiences, things you saw or thought about during the previous day or two. This is called the day residue effect. That person you briefly saw on the street might appear in your dream. That conversation you had might resurface in dream form. That problem you were working on might be addressed obliquely in a dream. But dreams blend these recent fragments with older memories, with emotions, with random associations, creating narratives that follow their own strange logic. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for logic, critical thinking, and reality testing, is less active during REM sleep. This might explain why dreams can seem perfectly reasonable while you're having them, even when they involve impossible situations or bizarre transformations. With your logical thinking somewhat diminished, you simply accept whatever happens in the dream. You don't question why you can suddenly fly, or why your friend has turned into someone else, or why you're simultaneously at work and at the beach. Your reduced critical thinking allows the dream narrative to unfold unchallenged. Most people dream for about 2 hours each night, spread across multiple REM periods. That's every night, whether you remember the dreams or not. You dream even if you think you don't. The difference is simply whether the dream memory persists into waking consciousness. Most dreams fade within minutes of waking, sometimes within seconds. The neural mechanisms that transfer short-term memories to long-term storage are not working normally during REM sleep, so dream memories don't get properly encoded. By the time you've gotten out of bed and started your day, you've likely forgotten 90% or more of what you dreamed. The dreams that do stick tend to be the most vivid, the most emotional, or the ones from which you wake directly. If you wake during or immediately after a REM period, you're much more likely to remember the dream. This is why people sometimes remember dreams when they wake in the middle of the night. They've woken from REM sleep, and the dream is still present in their awareness. If you want to remember your dreams better, some techniques can help. Keeping a dream journal and writing down dreams immediately upon waking can strengthen dream recall. Telling yourself before sleep that you want to remember your dreams sometimes helps. Simply paying attention to dreams and thinking about them makes you more likely to remember them in the future. The content of dreams varies across the night. Early REM periods tend to produce dreams that are more closely tied to recent experiences and concerns. Late night and early morning REM periods often produce more bizarre, creative, emotional dreams. This might be because different neurotransmitter systems are active at different times of night, influencing dream content. Alternatively, it might reflect the brain working through different types of information processing at different points in the sleep cycle. Some people experience lucid dreams, where they become aware they're dreaming while the dream is still happening. In a lucid dream, you realize you're asleep and dreaming, yet the dream continues. Some lucid dreamers can even exert some control over their dreams, choosing where to go or what to do within the dream world. Lucid dreaming occurs during REM sleep, and brain imaging studies have shown that the prefrontal cortex, which is usually less active during REM, becomes more active during lucid dreams. It's as if part of your waking consciousness is reactivating while you're still in the dream state. The cycles of sleep continue throughout the night, following a predictable pattern that's been remarkably consistent across human evolution. After each REM period, you descend back through stage 2, possibly into stage 3 again early in the night, then back up to stage 2 and into REM once more. Each complete cycle takes about 90 to 120 minutes, though there's considerable individual variation. Some people naturally have shorter cycles around 80 minutes, while others have longer cycles of nearly 2 hours. But these cycles aren't identical to each other. As mentioned, you get most of your deep sleep early in the night and most of your REM sleep late in the night. The architecture of sleep changes as the hours progress, shifting from restoration-focused to more dream-focused as morning approaches. Most people complete 4 to 5 full cycles in a typical 8-hour sleep period. If you go to bed at 11 at night and wake at 7 in the morning, you might have your first REM period around 12:30, your second around 2, your third around 3:30, your fourth around 5, and your fifth around 6:30, waking naturally from that final REM period. But these are approximations. The exact timing varies based on when you fall asleep, how deeply you sleep, and numerous individual factors. The first cycle of the night is often the most restorative. You transition through stages 1 and 2 relatively quickly, then spend a substantial period in deep, slow wave sleep. Your first REM period is brief, perhaps just 5 to 10 minutes. This first cycle might last only 70 to 90 minutes total, but it sets the foundation for the night, giving your body the deep rest it needs most urgently. The second cycle typically follows a similar pattern, but with less deep sleep. You might spend 20 or 30 minutes in stage 3 instead of 40. Your REM period is slightly longer, perhaps 15 minutes. The third cycle reduces deep sleep even further or eliminates it entirely. By the fourth and fifth cycles, you're mostly alternating between stage 2 and REM, with REM periods getting progressively longer. This shifting architecture serves different purposes at different times of night. The deep sleep early in the night prioritizes physical restoration. Your body is doing its most intensive repair work, releasing growth hormone, strengthening immunity, clearing metabolic waste from your brain. The increasing REM sleep later in the night prioritizes psychological restoration. Your brain is processing emotions, consolidating memories, making creative connections. Both types of restoration are essential. If your sleep is interrupted or cut short, you lose primarily REM sleep, because that's concentrated in the later part of the night. This is why waking up even an hour early can leave you feeling mentally foggy, even though you got 7 hours of sleep instead of 8. You've lost a significant portion of your REM sleep. Conversely, if you go to bed very late but sleep in, you might get adequate REM sleep but insufficient deep sleep, leaving you feeling physically unrested despite decent total sleep time. This cycling pattern isn't arbitrary. It appears to reflect the interplay of different brain systems and neurotransmitters. The brainstem, particularly an area called the pons, plays a crucial role in triggering REM sleep. The hypothalamus, a small but powerful structure deep in your brain, helps regulate the overall sleep-wake cycle. The basal forebrain influences sleep depth and continuity. These regions communicate through various neurotransmitter systems, creating the complex choreography of sleep stages. Different chemicals dominate at different stages. Adenosine builds up while you're awake, creating sleep pressure that makes you feel increasingly tired. When you sleep, adenosine levels gradually drop back down. Gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA, is the brain's primary inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it helps quiet neural activity, promoting sleep. During deep sleep, GABA activity is high, helping to keep you in that profound rest. Acetylcholine, conversely, is low during deep sleep, but surges during REM sleep, helping drive the brain's activation and the rapid eye movements. Norepinephrine and serotonin, both wake-promoting neurotransmitters, are low during cow sleep and nearly absent during REM sleep. Orexin, also called hypocretin, helps maintain wakefulness. When orexin neurons are active, you stay awake. When they're quiet, sleep becomes possible. The timing and nature of sleep cycles can be influenced by various factors. Alcohol, for instance, tends to increase deep sleep early in the night, but suppress REM sleep and fragment sleep later in the night. Sleeping pills may increase total sleep time, but often alter the normal architecture of sleep, sometimes reducing deep sleep or changing the pattern of sleep stages. Anxiety and stress can lead to more fragmented sleep, with frequent transitions between stages and more awakenings. Physical pain can prevent the sustained periods is any single stage needed for restorative sleep. Temperature affects sleep cycles as well. Being too warm tends to fragment sleep, causing more awakenings and transitions between stages. Being slightly cool promotes more consolidated, continuous sleep with longer periods in deep and REM sleep. This is one reason why cool bedrooms are recommended for optimal sleep quality. Age has a profound impact on sleep cycles. Newborns don't have clearly defined sleep cycles in the way adults do. They transition directly from wakefulness to REM sleep, and their sleep is divided fairly evenly between REM and quiet sleep, which is similar to NREM sleep. As babies mature, their sleep architecture gradually takes on a more adult pattern. By 6 months, most babies have developed clear cycles of NREM and REM sleep, though their cycles are shorter than adults, around 50 to 60 minutes. Children's sleep cycles gradually lengthen as they grow, approaching the 90-minute adult pattern by adolescence. Children spend more time in deep sleep than adults, which makes sense given their rapid growth and development. Teenagers undergo a shift in sleep timing, with their circadian rhythms moving later, but their sleep architecture remains similar to adults. As people move into middle age and beyond, their sleep cycles begin to change again. The time spent in deep sleep decreases progressively. More time is spent in lighter stage 2 sleep. There are more awakenings and transitions between stages. The sleep becomes more fragmented, less consolidated. The cycles themselves may become less regular, with more variable timing between REM periods. These age-related changes in sleep cycles help explain why sleep quality often declines with age, even when total sleep time is adequate. The consolidation and continuity of sleep matter as much as the duration. Fragmented sleep with many transitions between stages doesn't provide the same restorative benefits as consolidated sleep where you spend sustained periods in each stage. Some sleep disorders specifically disrupt sleep cycles. Sleep apnea causes repeated brief awakenings as breathing stops and starts, preventing the progression through normal sleep stages. Periodic limb movement disorder causes leg movements throughout the night that can trigger transitions to lighter sleep. Narcolepsy involves disrupted regulation of sleep-wake states, with REM sleep intruding into wakefulness inappropriately. Each of these disorders prevents the normal cycling through sleep stages, leading to unrefreshing sleep despite adequate time spent in bed. The regulation of sleep involves not just your brain, but your entire body, coordinated by what's known as the circadian rhythm. This is your body's internal clock, a timing system that runs on approximately a 24-hour cycle. The word circadian comes from Latin, circa meaning about, and dian meaning day. So circadian literally means about a day. This biological clock exists in virtually every cell of your body. Each individual cell has clock genes that oscillate on roughly a 24-hour cycle. But the master clock, the conductor that keeps all these cellular clocks synchronized, resides in a tiny cluster of about 20,000 neurons in your hypothalamus, called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The discovery of the SCN's role as the master biological clock came from elegant experiments in the 1970s and 80s. Researchers found that if they destroyed the SCN in laboratory animals, those animals lost all circadian rhythmicity. They would sleep and wake at random times, eat at random times, their body temperature and hormone levels would lose their normal daily patterns. But if researchers then transplanted SCN tissue from another animal into the damaged area, circadian rhythms would be restored. Even more remarkably, the rhythm would match the donor animal's rhythm, not the recipient's. This proved definitively that the SCN was the source of the body's circadian timing. This master clock in your SCN responds primarily to light, and the pathway by which it does so is fascinating. Special cells in your retinas, distinct from the rods and cones you use for vision, detect light and send signals directly to the SCN. These special cells contain a photopigment called melanopsin, which is most sensitive to blue wavelengths of light. When light enters your eyes, even through closed eyelids, these melanopsin-containing cells signal the SCN, telling it whether it's day or night. The SCN then sends signals throughout your body, synchronizing all those cellular clocks, adjusting the timing of countless biological processes. When the SCN senses darkness, it triggers the pineal gland, a small structure deep in your brain, to release melatonin. The signal travels from your SCN through your sympathetic nervous system to reach the pineal gland. This hormone spreads through your bloodstream, reaching every part of your body, signaling that it's time to sleep. Melatonin doesn't force you to sleep in the way an anesthetic would. You can resist it through willpower, coffee, or bright light. But it makes sleep more likely, more appealing. It lowers your body temperature slightly, reduces your alertness, and generally prepares your body for rest. It makes you feel drowsy, relaxed, ready for bed. Melatonin levels begin to rise in the evening, usually starting around 2 to 3 hours before your natural bedtime. They peak in the middle of the night, usually around 2 or 3 in the morning, when levels are 10 to 15 times higher than during the day. Then they begin to fall, dropping to very low levels by the time you wake. During the day, melatonin is barely detectable in your bloodstream. This daily rhythm of melatonin is one of the most reliable markers of circadian phase, which is why researchers often measure melatonin levels to assess someone's internal clock timing. In the morning, even before you open your eyes, your body begins preparing to wake through a different hormonal mechanism. Cortisol, a hormone often associated with stress but also with alertness and energy, starts to rise in the early morning hours. This is called the cortisol awakening response. Cortisol levels begin increasing about 2 to 3 hours before your usual wake time, and they surge in the first 30 to 45 minutes after you wake. By the time you need to get up, cortisol has reached levels that promote wakefulness and energy. It increases blood sugar availability, providing fuel for your brain and muscles. It promotes alertness and readiness to engage with the world. Your body temperature also follows a circadian pattern. It's lowest in the early morning, usually around 4 or 5 a.m., and highest in the late afternoon or early evening, usually around 6 or 7 p.m. This variation is about 1 to 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit over the course of 24 hours. This temperature rhythm is closely tied to your sleep-wake cycle. The falling temperature in the evening helps promote sleep, while the rising temperature in the morning helps promote waking. If you've ever noticed that you feel most alert in the late afternoon or early evening, the peak of your temperature rhythm is partly why. Your circadian rhythm does more than just regulate sleep and wakefulness. It coordinates the timing of countless biological processes throughout your body in a phenomenon sometimes called circadian medicine. Your metabolism follows a circadian pattern, with insulin sensitivity highest in the morning and lowest at night, which is why eating large meals late at night is associated with weight gain and metabolic problems. Your digestion is more efficient during the day. Your liver processes toxins more effectively at certain times. Your immune function is more active at certain hours, which is why vaccines given in the morning often produce stronger immune responses than those given in the afternoon. Even your mental performance varies with your circadian rhythm. Most people experience peak alertness and mental sharpness in the late morning, around 10 or 11 a.m., and again in the early evening, around 6 or 7 p.m. There's typically a dip in alertness in the early afternoon, around 2 or 3 p.m., which is why many people feel drowsy after lunch. This afternoon dip isn't just about digesting food. It's partly a natural circadian phenomenon, a small valley in your alertness rhythm. Many cultures have institutionalized this recognition in the form of siestas or afternoon rest periods. There's another, stronger dip in alertness in the early morning hours, around 2 to 4 a.m., which is when accidents and errors spike among night shift workers. Your cardiovascular system follows circadian patterns as well. Blood pressure is lowest during sleep and peaks in the morning hours after waking. This morning surge in blood pressure is thought to be one reason why heart attacks and strokes are more common in the morning. Heart rate also shows daily variation. The risk for certain types of heart arrhythmias varies by time of day. Interestingly, your natural circadian rhythm isn't exactly 24 hours. For most people, the internal clock runs slightly longer than 24 hours, perhaps 24 hours and 11 minutes on average, though there's individual variation. Some people have internal clocks that run a bit faster, closer to 24 hours exactly. Others have internal clocks that run slower, closer to 24.5 hours. Without any external cues, without light to reset it each day, your internal clock would slowly drift, causing you to go to bed later and wake up later each day. Your sleep-wake schedule would gradually shift around the clock. But light exposure, particularly bright light in the morning, keeps your clock synchronized with the actual day. It's like winding a mechanical watch. The light provides a daily reset signal that pulls your internal timing back into alignment with the sun. This is called entrainment. Your circadian system is entrained to the 24-hour day by the daily light-dark cycle. Morning light advances your clock, making you wake earlier and go to bed earlier. Evening light delays your clock, making you stay up later and wake later. This is the principle behind light therapy for circadian rhythm disorders. The power of light to influence circadian timing varies by wavelength, intensity, and timing. Blue wavelength light around 480 nanometers is most effective at suppressing melatonin and shifting circadian timing. Bright light is more effective than dim light. The timing matters tremendously. Light exposure in the first few hours after your temperature minimum, which occurs in the early morning hours, advances your clock. Light exposure in the hours before your temperature minimum delays your clock. Light exposure in the middle of the day has relatively little effect on circadian timing, though it still helps maintain entrainment. This is why jet lag happens when you travel across time zones. When you fly from New York to London, crossing 5 time zones eastward, you arrive when it's morning in London, but your internal clock says it's the middle of the night. Your circadian system is still set to New York time. It takes several days for light cues in the new location to reset your clock to the local time. Until that happens, you feel tired at the wrong times and alert when you should be sleeping. The direction of travel matters. Most people find it harder to adjust to eastward travel than westward travel because eastward travel requires advancing your clock, going to bed and waking earlier, which is harder than delaying your clock. Going to bed later comes more naturally to our slightly longer than 24-hour internal clocks. Shift workers face a similar but more chronic challenge. People who work night shifts are trying to stay awake when their circadian rhythm is screaming at them to sleep, and trying to sleep when their biology wants them to be active. Even if they can sleep during the day, the quality is often poor because they're fighting their circadian rhythm. Daytime sleep for night shift workers tends to be lighter, shorter, more fragmented. The bedroom is usually brighter and noisier during the day, even with blackout curtains and white noise. And if shift workers rotate between day and night shifts, their circadian systems never fully adapt, leaving them in a state of chronic circadian disruption. The health consequences of chronic circadian disruption are significant. Shift workers have higher rates of obesity, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and certain cancers. They have more gastrointestinal problems, more mood disorders, more cognitive complaints. The International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified shift work as a probable human carcinogen, based on evidence that it increases cancer risk, particularly breast and prostate cancer. The mechanisms aren't fully understood, but likely involve chronic suppression of melatonin, which has anti-cancer properties, along with disrupted regulation of cell division and DNA repair processes that normally occur on circadian schedules. The circadian rhythm changes across the lifespan in predictable and fascinating ways. Newborn babies don't have a fully developed circadian rhythm yet. For the first few weeks of life, they sleep and wake seemingly at random, much to their parents' exhaustion. This isn't because they're being difficult. They literally don't have the neural machinery for circadian rhythmicity fully developed yet. The SCN is present but not yet fully functional. By about 2 to 4 months of age, babies start developing a day-night pattern. Their SCN begins responding to light cues. Melatonin production develops its circadian pattern, and they start sleeping more at night and less during the day. By 6 months, most babies have a reasonably clear circadian rhythm, though it continues to mature throughout childhood. Young children tend to be natural morning larks. They wake early and are most alert in the morning, getting tired earlier in the evening. This is partly because their circadian period tends to be slightly shorter than adults, and partly because their response to light is strong, helping keep them synchronized to early wake times. This can be challenging for parents who would like to sleep later, but it's perfectly normal childhood biology. Then comes adolescence, and everything changes. Teenagers experience a fascinating shift in their circadian rhythm during puberty. Their biological clocks move later, a phenomenon called a sleep phase delay. This isn't laziness or poor habits or willful defiance of bedtime. It's a genuine biological shift driven by hormonal changes. The timing of melatonin release shifts later by about 2 hours during adolescence. The average teenager's natural sleep time is around 11 p.m. or even later, with a natural wake time around 8 or 9 in the morning or even later. Their circadian rhythm is fundamentally shifted later compared to children and adults. Unfortunately, most schools start early, typically between 7 and 8 a.m., forcing teenagers to wake far before their bodies are ready. To make matters worse, teens generally need about 9 hours of sleep per night, more than adults. But if their natural bedtime is 11 p.m. and they have to wake at 6 a.m. for school, they're getting only 7 hours of sleep. This creates chronic sleep deprivation in adolescence, with consequences for their health, mood, and academic performance. Numerous studies have shown that when school start times are delayed to 8:30 a.m. or later, teens get more sleep, miss fewer classes, have fewer car accidents, show better academic performance, and report better mental health. Some school districts have made this change, but many resist due to logistical challenges. In adulthood, circadian rhythms tend to stabilize. Most adults settle into a relatively consistent pattern, waking and sleeping at roughly the same times each day when allowed to follow their natural rhythm. However, there's considerable individual variation that's partly genetic and partly influenced by life circumstances and habits. Some people are natural morning larks or early chronotypes, waking early and feeling alert in the morning but getting tired early in the evening. They might naturally wake at 5 or 6 a.m. feeling refreshed and ready to start the day, with peak alertness between 8 a.m. and noon. But they start yawning by 8 p.m. and are ready for bed by 9 or 10. Others are night owls or late chronotypes, taking longer to fully wake up, but feeling most alert late in the day and naturally staying up late. A night owl might not feel fully awake until 10 or 11 a.m., hit their peak performance in the afternoon and evening, and not feel sleepy until midnight or 1 a.m. Night owls often report that they could happily stay up until 2 or 3 a.m. if they didn't have to wake for work or other obligations. They're not being difficult or undisciplined. their circadian rhythm genuinely runs later. These chronotype differences are real and meaningful. They're influenced by variants in clock genes, the genes that control circadian timing. The PR3 gene, for instance, comes in different versions, and which version you have affects whether you're more likely to be a morning or evening person. Other clock genes like clock and BML1 also show variants that influence circadian timing. Twin studies suggest that about 50% of chronotype variation is genetic, with the rest influenced by environmental factors and habits. There's also a gender difference. Women tend toward slightly earlier chronotypes than men, on average waking about half an hour earlier and going to bed about half an hour earlier. The difference isn't huge, but it's consistent across studies. The reasons aren't entirely clear, but likely involve hormonal influences on circadian timing. Chronotype affects more than just when you sleep. It influences when you perform best at various tasks. Morning larks tend to perform better on cognitive tasks in the morning. Night owls perform better in the evening. If you have to take an important test or give an important presentation, you'll generally do better if it's scheduled during your optimal time of day according to your chronotype. There's even evidence that chronotype affects personality and mood. Night owls are slightly more likely to experience depression, possibly because modern society's schedules are biased toward morning people, forcing night owls to constantly fight their natural rhythm. Unfortunately, the modern world is largely structured for morning larks. Most jobs start at 8 or 9 a.m. Schools start even earlier. Social activities, shopping, appointments, all tend to be scheduled during morning and afternoon hours. This chronotype mismatch creates what researchers call social jet lag, the misalignment between your biological clock and social clocks. A night owl who has to wake at 6 a.m. for work is living in a state of chronic jet lag, forced to wake hours before their body is ready day after day. The health consequences can be significant, similar to those of actual jet lag or shift work. As people age, their circadian rhythms often shift earlier again. Older adults tend to get sleepy earlier in the evening and wake earlier in the morning. They may also sleep more lightly and wake more frequently during the night. The overall architecture of their sleep changes, with less time spent in deep sleep and more frequent awakenings. This doesn't necessarily mean they need less sleep, but they may find it harder to get continuous, high-quality sleep. Sleep pressure. The feeling of needing to sleep builds throughout the day in a process called sleep-wake homeostasis. The longer you're awake, the stronger the pressure becomes. This works separately from your circadian rhythm, though the two systems interact. You can think of it like this. Sleep pressure is how much you need to sleep right now, while circadian rhythm is when your body wants you to sleep. When both systems align, when you're both tired from being awake and your circadian rhythm says it's time for sleep, you fall asleep easily and sleep deeply. But if these two systems are out of sync, sleep becomes difficult. If you nap late in the day, you reduce your sleep pressure. So even though your circadian rhythm says it's bedtime, you don't feel tired enough to sleep. If you force yourself to stay awake all night, your sleep pressure is enormous, but your circadian rhythm is trying to wake you up as morning approaches, creating a strange state of exhausted alertness. The mechanism behind sleep pressure involves a molecule called adenosine. While you're awake, your neurons are constantly active, burning energy, and one byproduct of this energy use is adenosine. Adenosine accumulates in your brain throughout the day, binding to receptors and gradually making you feel more tired. When you sleep, your body breaks down the adenosine, clearing it away. By morning, levels are low again, and you wake feeling refreshed, ready to start the cycle anew. This is why caffeine works. Caffeine molecules are shaped similarly to adenosine molecules. When you drink coffee, the caffeine binds to adenosine receptors, blocking the adenosine from binding there. Your brain can't detect the adenosine that's been building up, so you don't feel as tired. But the adenosine is still accumulating. When the caffeine wears off, all that built-up adenosine suddenly floods back into your awareness, often causing a crash of fatigue. Sleep is not optional. It's not a luxury or something you can choose to do or not do. Sleep is a biological necessity, as essential as food or water. Every known animal sleeps or enters a sleep-like state. Even simple organisms like worms and fruit flies sleep. The evolutionary pressure to sleep must be enormous for it to have persisted despite the obvious vulnerabilities it creates. A sleeping animal cannot watch for predators, cannot seek food, cannot mate. Yet sleep has persisted, unchanged, for hundreds of millions of years. This suggests it serves functions so critical that going without it would be even more dangerous than the vulnerability sleep creates. What happens when you don't get enough sleep? The effects are profound and wide-ranging. In the short term, even a single night of insufficient sleep impacts your mental and physical functioning. Your reaction time slows. Your ability to focus deteriorates. Memory formation becomes impaired. You make more mistakes. Your mood suffers, leaving you irritable, emotionally reactive, and prone to negative thinking. If you've been awake for 16 to 18 hours straight, your mental performance is impaired as much as if you had a blood alcohol level of 0.05%, enough to be legally impaired for driving in many jurisdictions. After 24 hours without sleep, the effects worsen dramatically. You may experience microsleeps, brief episodes of 1 to 2 seconds where your brain essentially shuts down while your eyes remain open. These happen involuntarily. You cannot prevent them through willpower. During a microsleep, you're functionally asleep even though you appear awake. If you're driving when this happens, the results can be catastrophic. Sleep deprivation causes thousands of traffic accidents every year. Your cognitive impairment continues to worsen. You may experience visual distortions where things appear slightly off or strange. Your judgment becomes severely compromised. You may not even realize how impaired you are. After 48 hours without sleep, you begin to experience more severe problems. Complex hallucinations can develop. You might see things that aren't there or hear voices. Your grip on reality becomes tenuous. Paranoia can set in. Some people become essentially unable to function, while others can push through, though their performance is severely degraded. The body is screaming for sleep by this point, and the pressure is nearly irresistible. Going even longer without sleep can be dangerous. There are cases of people staying awake for a week or more, often in attempts to set records. The effects are severe. Cognitive function is profoundly impaired. Hallucinations become more frequent and intense. Some people become unable to form new memories or to concentrate on even simple tasks. The longest confirmed case of a person staying awake was 11 days by a high school student named Randy Gardner in 1964. He experienced severe cognitive and behavioral changes, though he recovered fully after sleeping. After his case, Guinness World Records stopped accepting submissions for sleep deprivation records due to the health risks involved. Chronic sleep deprivation, getting insufficient sleep night after night, has even more serious consequences. It's associated with a frightening array of health problems. Your risk of developing high blood pressure increases significantly. Your likelihood of heart disease rises. Your chance of having a stroke goes up. You become more likely to develop type 2 diabetes, as sleep deprivation impairs your body's ability to regulate blood sugar. Your immune system weakens, making you more susceptible to infections. You're more likely to become obese, as insufficient sleep disrupts the hormones that regulate appetite, making you hungrier and more likely to crave unhealthy foods. Mental health suffers profoundly from chronic sleep deprivation. The relationship between sleep and mental health is complex and bidirectional. Poor sleep increases your risk of depression and anxiety disorders. People with insomnia are more than twice as likely to develop depression than people who sleep well. At the same time, depression and anxiety can cause sleep problems, creating a vicious cycle. Sleep deprivation also worsens existing mental health conditions. People with bipolar disorder often experience mood episodes triggered by sleep disruption. Your brain needs sleep to function properly. During sleep, particularly during deep sleep, your brain consolidates memories, integrating new information with what you already know. Without adequate sleep, your ability to learn new things and remember what you've learned is severely compromised. Students who pull all-nighters before exams often perform worse than if they'd gotten adequate sleep. The sleep is more valuable for learning than the extra study time. Sleep also appears to be when your brain cleans itself. Researchers have discovered that during sleep, particularly deep sleep, the spaces between your brain cells expand slightly. This allows cerebrospinal fluid to flow through your brain tissue, washing away waste products and potentially harmful proteins that accumulated during waking hours. One of these proteins is beta amyloid, which is associated with Alzheimer's disease. People who consistently get poor sleep have higher levels of beta amyloid in their brains. And this might be one reason why chronic sleep deprivation is associated with increased dementia risk later in life. The amount of sleep you need varies somewhat by individual, but most adults need between 7 and 9 hours per night. Some people, a small percentage, can genuinely function well on 6 hours. Others need 10 hours to feel their best. The key is consistent, adequate sleep night after night. You cannot make up for chronic sleep debt by sleeping more on weekends. While you can recover from a few nights of poor sleep by sleeping more for a few days, chronic sleep deprivation has effects that persist even after you start sleeping more. Your performance might improve, but some of the health consequences can linger or even be permanent. Sleep disorders affect millions of people. Insomnia, the inability to fall asleep or stay asleep, is the most common sleep disorder, affecting 10 to 15% of adults chronically. People with insomnia lie awake for hours, unable to quiet their minds or relax their bodies enough to sleep. Or they fall asleep initially, but wake repeatedly throughout the night, unable to return to sleep. Chronic insomnia can have severe effects on quality of life, making people feel exhausted, foggy, and unable to function fully during the day. Sleep apnea is another common disorder, where breathing repeatedly stops and starts during sleep. The most common form, obstructive sleep apnea, happens when the throat muscles relax too much, blocking the airway. Each time this happens, the person briefly wakes, though often without any memory of waking, to restore breathing. This can happen dozens or even hundreds of times per night, completely fragmenting sleep and preventing deep and REM sleep. People with untreated sleep apnea never feel rested, no matter how much time they spend in bed. They're at increased risk for high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. Treatment with a CPAP machine, which keeps the airway open with pressurized air, can be life-changing. Narcolepsy is a less common but dramatic sleep disorder, where the brain cannot properly regulate sleep-wake cycles. People with narcolepsy experience sudden attacks of sleep during the day, falling asleep without warning even in the middle of conversations or activities. They may also experience cataplexy, where strong emotions trigger sudden muscle weakness or paralysis. Their REM sleep regulation is disrupted, sometimes causing them to enter REM sleep directly from waking, leading to hallucinations or sleep paralysis. Restless leg syndrome causes uncomfortable sensations in the legs, particularly at night, along with an irresistible urge to move them. This makes falling asleep and staying asleep difficult. Periodic limb movement disorder causes repetitive movements of the limbs during sleep, often disrupting sleep without the person being aware of it. Parasomnias are a category of disorders that involve abnormal movements, behaviors, or experiences during sleep. Sleepwalking, or somnambulism, typically happens during deep sleep. The person appears to be awake, walking around, and sometimes performing complex behaviors. But they're actually asleep, and usually have no memory of these episodes afterward. Sleepwalking can be dangerous, as people might walk into dangerous situations or hurt themselves. Sleep talking, or somniloquy, is common and usually harmless. People might mumble incoherently or speak in clear, complete sentences while asleep. What they say rarely makes sense and doesn't necessarily reflect their true thoughts or feelings. Some people become quite animated, even shouting or swearing in their sleep, particularly during dreams that involve conflict or stress. Night terrors are intense episodes of fear during sleep, different from nightmares. They usually happen during deep sleep and involves sudden arousal to a state of terror, often with screaming, thrashing, and a racing heart. The person is extremely difficult to wake and usually doesn't remember the episode in the morning. Night terrors are more common in children but can occur in adults. REM sleep behavior disorder is particularly striking. People with this condition don't experience the normal paralysis during REM sleep. Instead, they physically act out their dreams, which can be dangerous. They might throw punches, kick, jump out of bed, or hurt themselves or their sleeping partners. This disorder is more common in older adults and can sometimes be an early sign of neurodegenerative diseases. Sleep paralysis happens when a person wakes during REM sleep, but the muscle paralysis hasn't worn off yet. They're conscious but cannot move or speak. This can be terrifying, especially because it's often accompanied by hallucinations, a sense of presence in the room, or feelings of pressure on the chest. Episodes usually last only a few minutes, though they can feel much longer. Understanding what's happening can make sleep paralysis less frightening when it occurs. Improving sleep often starts with what's called sleep hygiene, the habits and practices that promote good sleep. Keeping a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking at the same time every day, even on weekends, helps strengthen your circadian rhythm. Your body learns when it's time to sleep and prepares accordingly. Creating a good sleep environment matters. Your bedroom should be cool, dark, and quiet. Even small amounts of light can interfere with sleep, so blackout curtains or a sleep mask can help. White noise or earplugs can block disruptive sounds. Your mattress and pillow should be comfortable and supportive. The room should be used primarily for sleep, not for work or watching television, to build a strong mental association between the space and sleep. Avoiding bright light, especially blue light from screens, in the hours before bed helps melatonin production. Blue light in particular suppresses melatonin more than other wavelengths. Many devices now have night mode settings that reduce blue light emission in the evening. Even better is to avoid screens entirely for an hour or two before bed. Regular exercise promotes better sleep, but timing matters. Exercising too close to bedtime can interfere with sleep, as it raises body temperature and increases alertness. Morning or afternoon exercise tends to work better for sleep quality. What you consume affects sleep. Caffeine has a long half-life, meaning it stays in your system for hours. Drinking coffee or other caffeinated beverages in the afternoon or evening can interfere with sleep, even if you don't consciously feel wired. Alcohol, despite making people feel sleepy initially, actually disrupts sleep quality, particularly in the second half of the night. Heavy meals close to bedtime can cause discomfort that interferes with sleep. A bedtime routine helps signal to your body that sleep is approaching. This might include reading, taking a warm bath, doing gentle stretching, or practicing relaxation techniques. The routine itself matters less than its consistency and its calming effect. Managing stress and anxiety is crucial for good sleep. Racing thoughts and worries can make it impossible to fall asleep or cause frequent awakenings. Techniques like meditation, deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or journaling can help quiet a busy mind. Some people find that keeping a notepad by the bed to write down worries or tomorrow's tasks helps prevent rumination. If you're lying awake unable to sleep, most sleep experts recommend getting out of bed after 15 or 20 minutes. Lying awake in bed can create an association between the bed and wakefulness, making the problem worse. Instead, go to another room and do something quiet and relaxing in dim light until you feel sleepy, then return to bed. Napping can be beneficial but also problematic. Short naps of 20 to 30 minutes can provide a refreshing boost without interfering with nighttime sleep. But longer naps, or naps late in the day, reduce your sleep pressure, making it harder to fall asleep at bedtime. For shift workers who must sleep during the day, creating an especially dark, quiet sleep environment becomes even more critical. Blackout curtains, sleep masks, and white noise can help create artificial night. Some shift workers also use melatonin supplements to help adjust their sleep timing, though this should be done under medical guidance. Light therapy can help with circadian rhythm disorders or with seasonal affective disorder, where the shorter days of winter disrupt sleep and mood. Exposure to bright light, especially in the morning, can help reset circadian rhythms and improve sleep timing. There's growing interest in tracking sleep using wearable devices. These can provide insights into your sleep patterns, showing you how much time you spend in different stages and how often you wake during the night. However, consumer devices aren't perfectly accurate, and obsessing over sleep metrics can sometimes create anxiety that worsens sleep. They're tools, not diagnostic instruments, and should be used as general guides rather than absolute measures. In some cultures and historical periods, sleep patterns have been quite different from the consolidated 8-hour block we consider normal today. Some evidence suggests that before artificial lighting, people commonly slept in 2 segments with a period of wakefulness in between. They might sleep for 3 or 4 hours, wake for an hour or 2 of quiet activity, then sleep for another 3 or 4 hours. This biphasic sleep pattern might be more natural than our modern pattern of attempting to sleep straight through the night. Many cultures around the world embrace napping or siestas, particularly in hot climates. A short afternoon rest when temperatures are highest makes sense from both a comfort and energy conservation standpoint. In some countries, businesses close during the hottest part of the afternoon so people can rest. Sleep has been the subject of art, literature, and philosophy for millennia. Dreams in particular have fascinated humans throughout history. Ancient cultures believed dreams carried messages from gods or spirits. Freud saw dreams as windows into the unconscious mind, revealing repressed desires and conflicts. Jung believed dreams connected to a collective unconscious shared by all humanity. Modern neuroscience sees dreams as the brain processing information and emotions, though the subjective experience remains mysterious and meaningful to those who have them. The image of sleep as a small death appears across cultures. In Greek mythology, Hypnos, the god of sleep, and Thanatos, the god of death, were brothers, both sons of Nyx, the goddess of night. Sleep has been called the cousin of death, a temporary cessation of consciousness that hints at the permanent one to come. Yet sleep is also renewal, rebirth, a nightly return to innocence and vulnerability. We wake from sleep feeling refreshed, as if we've been somewhere else, and returned. Some animals have evolved remarkable sleep adaptations. Dolphins and whales sleep with only half their brain at a time, keeping the other half awake to control breathing and watch for threats. This uni-hemispheric sleep allows them to sleep while still rising to breathe. Migrating birds can sleep while flying, again shutting down half the brain while the other half keeps them aloft. Giraffes sleep very little, only about 2 hours a day, and often sleep standing up. Bats, by contrast, sleep nearly 20 hours a day, hanging upside down in dark caves. Alpine swifts can stay airborne for months, sleeping in brief bursts while gliding on air currents. Hibernation takes sleep to an extreme. Hibernating animals enter a state of dramatically reduced metabolism, with heart rate and breathing slowing to a fraction of normal rates, and body temperature dropping close to ambient temperature. They might not wake for months, surviving on stored body fat. This isn't true sleep in the technical sense, as brain activity patterns are different. But it serves a similar function of conserving energy and surviving periods when food is scarce. Throughout human history, our relationship with sleep has evolved alongside our technology. Before artificial light, human sleep was governed primarily by the sun. People woke with dawn and went to bed not long after sunset. The invention of fire extended the day somewhat, allowing evening activities. But it was the invention of gas lighting, and then electric lighting, that truly separated human activity from the natural cycle of day and night. The Industrial Revolution further disrupted sleep. Factories ran around the clock, requiring shift work. The line between day and night blurred. People began to see sleep as a waste of productive time, something to be minimized. The modern world often treats sleep as optional, as something successful people can do with less of. This attitude has come at enormous cost to public health. Now we're beginning to understand what we've lost. Sleep research over the past few decades has revealed just how essential sleep is for virtually every aspect of health and functioning. There's a growing recognition that sleep is not weakness or laziness, but a fundamental biological need. Some companies are beginning to prioritize sleep, recognizing that well-rested employees are more productive, creative, and healthy. Some schools are starting later to align with teenage circadian rhythms. Public health campaigns are emphasizing sleep as a pillar of health alongside diet and exercise. Understanding your own sleep can be empowering. Paying attention to how different habits affect your sleep quality can help you make adjustments that lead to better rest. Notice what makes you sleep better or worse. Experiment with your schedule, your environment, your routines. Sleep is too important to leave to chance. As you prepare for sleep tonight, remember that you're about to embark on a journey your body has made thousands of times. Your brain will cycle through its stages, performing its nightly maintenance, consolidating your memories, processing your emotions. Your body will repair itself, growing stronger, healing injuries, bolstering defenses. You'll spend time in deep sleep, that restorative rest that leaves you refreshed. You'll dream, exploring impossible landscapes created by your own mind. All of this happens in darkness and silence, without your conscious awareness. You won't remember most of it by morning. But it's happening every night, this miraculous process that keeps you alive and healthy and functioning. Sleep is not an absence. It's a presence, a different mode of being, one that's just as important as waking life. So tonight, as you close your eyes and feel yourself beginning to drift, trust in the process. Your body knows what to do. Your brain knows the path. All you need to do is let go. Allow the waking world to fade. Feel your muscles softening, your breathing deepening, your mind quieting. The journey is beginning. And when you wake, you'll be renewed, ready to face another day, carrying forward the gifts that sleep has given you. Good night.